a small overview to begin with of the Mosconi product line. And then we're going to delve into some of the newer products that they have come out with in the last few months that some of you may not be aware of, and some of you may be, but I think you'll find this to be interesting. I think you'll find it informative in every respect. So this is basically going to be what you should know about Mosconi. And right now, this is the only brand that is offering Class D and Class AB DSP amplifiers. I personally do not know of anybody else out there that's doing it right now. They are all 100% made in Italy. They're not just assembled. They're all done in Italy. As a matter of fact, when they were designing and thinking about building this factory, one of the things they wanted to make ensure of when they were building this is that everything they needed was within, a 30-kilometer radius of the factory. So anyway, they are also the only brand right now that's offering Class A, AB amplifiers. Now, what exactly is that? Well, it's a very specific type of circuit that they have come up with, which I will go into greater detail with in just a minute. It is a complete line from, the integration product all the way to, the best there is with the Pro Series amplifiers, and including the aerospace speakers from Gladen. And right now, I completely believe this, that it is the most versatile DSP software utilized on the market today. And not just simply because of the binaural measuring system that we call Barney, but also because of the input correction system that we have on it. And it gives you the flexibility to do just about anything you need to do to make any vehicle sound really, really, really good. Now, there are also, this is a portion of this that I think we don't spend enough time on, and it's called the Sound Up. And it's a section of Mosconi and / Gladen that they talk about, it's not just harnesses, even though there's a ton of harnesses out there for a lot of different vehicles. It's a complete solution. I mean, they're talking, how they design these things is, it's the harness, the power cable, the amplifier, the DSP amplifier, the speakers, including, what we're doing with Orca with adding black hole deadening material into it. This is a complete system from start to finish.
And off.
Okay. And so I think this allows maximum flexibility. That you can literally design the system out and you know exactly what you have in every respect as far as whatever car it has. And an awful lot of these packages, they have a base tune, for a lot of different vehicles that are out there. And those vehicles are increasing each and every week and month as to what the tuning sections are available for each individual vehicle. A lot of these harnesses, they work with the Pico 4, the Pico 6, the Pico 8. You can see how they're thinking these are going to be used, where you have a front semi-active system. Then the Pico 6 would add the rear channels. The Pico 8 would add the center channel. But it also works in the same respect with the 1 Series amplifiers, the new 1 Series that has the 48 DSP, the 6 to 10 DSP, and the 8 to 10 DSP. All of these harnesses work with these 6 amplifiers. And of course, those 6 amplifiers, you can also add subwoofer amplifiers onto them as well. And you may be able to add an additional 2-channel or 4-channel amplifier on top of it. So it depends on, what you want to do, and it gives you maximum flexibility. And when we're talking about this better speakers, sure, the G100s, the new Sigmas, the new Zetas, the Pros, the Aerospaces, K2M, Utopia, this works. They work extremely well with just about every solution that you could possibly come up with. They've got power harnesses specifically for the Pico amplifiers. It saves a ton of time as far as having to figure out, where am I going to find the power and ground turn on? Well, it's actually there for you. It's not hard to find. It's really easy to use. There are some also the pass-through harnesses for a lot of European vehicles. Being with the technical support side with Orca as well, there's an awful lot of vehicles like, for instance, Porsches and Volkswagens and Audis, in which you really do need one of these bypass harnesses. It's a pass-through, and it works extremely well. It makes your life way simpler and way easier as far as integration is concerned. And you can use it with or without the preamplification sections, such as Porsches or even some of the Audis that are out there, and of course, Mercedes. Now, the Tesla, the reason we're going to talk about this is because, there's a ton of Teslas that have been sold for the last 5 to 7 years. Like last year, you can see just how many got sold in the United States. And when you have a system like this that is basically taking all the guesswork out of it, this makes things easier. You don't have to worry about the 15.5 volt electronics, and the tune's going to be included. There's less than a day to install these things. I mean, I've had dealers tell me that, 4 to 6 hours is all it takes to get this done. And we all know time is money. So these packages that have been put together for you, depends on which speakers you want to use, whether it's Focal or whether it's Gladen, it's completely up to you. These are just examples for you guys to think through, whether it's Tesla, or whether it's, Mercedes, whether it's BMW, that's up to you. But you can see right now that like this was a base package, you add an amplifier, you add a sub, you use the factory locations, depending on which car you want to use, which amplification section you want to use, which sub you want to use, so basically the same thing. If you want to do front stage, rear, and the subwoofer, then you would add another amplifier into the section. And if you want to do a full-blown system, which will be front, rear, center channels, these are just examples of the flexibility of the system and how easy it is to actually get it to work and to actually sound really, really, really good. So these are just examples that we want you guys to be made aware of, that there are numerous different solutions out there available for you, depending on the car. Now, specifically, when it comes to the Class AB DSP amplifiers, this is one of those sections that I really like to take a little bit of time to talk about because being the pain in the butt audiophile that I am personally really happy with the Class AB sound of things. I think it sounds warmer, it's more natural sounding, it has more power, it has more dynamic range. And I am a huge, huge fan of the Pro Series and the 1 Series amplifiers. I think everybody that knows me, they know how adamant and really enamored I am with this product. But having the Class AB built into this to be able to use the DSPs, that gives all of us an advantage because this is all about us making things sound better. And yes, there are times when we have to use the Class Ds because of size constraints. Yes, absolutely, no question about it. But if you have the room, and you have the ability to sell somebody a Class AB amplifier or even the Class A ABs, please do so. I think you'll find that they're going to be probably a little happier because of the way they sound. Now, all of these, again, I'm going to stress, all of these are 100% made in Italy, okay? All of the amplifiers get tested before they leave the factory. As we were talking about, all of the production facilities, everything that supplies products to them, they're all within a 60-mile radius. Right down to the chassis and the PC board, they're all made in Italy. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, this company got started back in 2009. All of the founding employees that were there, they're still there. They haven't left and gone somewhere. I'm sure a lot of them could because of, let's face it, the success that Mosconi's had in a relative short amount of time, but they haven't. And the reason why is because they have a tremendous amount of passion for what they do. And that's something that you can't buy. And when you have that kind of passion, you end up producing a product like this. This is what is known as Class A/AB technology. Now, just exactly what this is. Well, there are 2 amplifiers right now that are using this. They're using it's called the Pro 210 AAB and the Pro 430. And what happens is they run in basically Class A operation through 30 watts. And if anybody, and Class A basically, means that the output devices stay on constantly all the time. And yes, it runs hotter. It most certainly does. I will tell you right now, it runs way hotter. But because it doesn't go what is known as off, on, it's just constantly on, you end up with a cleaner sounding signal. And Class A has always been, whether it's the home audio side or the pro audio side, you end up getting a sound that is closer to live. It gives you a tremendous amount of sense of space, of ambience, depth, width, height, three-dimensionality. That's what Class A can give you. Now, they also realize that, Class A, mid-bass drivers and subwoofers, they don't like Class A. The Class A runs out of gas. Basically, the power supply says, no, I'm not doing that. So the engineers, what they did is they found a way in which they can literally say, okay, from Class A operation into Class AB, the signal slides back and forth to where if it's a tremendous, let's say a transient response in sub bass or bass, then the amp switches to Class AB, and then it gets all the power that it possibly would need in order to produce that. So right now, if you talk about the Pro 430, it's 170 watts a channel at 4 ohms. And yeah, you can bridge it and you give it 450 watts a channel. Yeah, it does. It absolutely does it. No question about it. The Pro 210 is 240 watts a channel. It's 720 watts bridged, and it's quite powerful. When you bridge these things, you still get Class A, AB technology. Okay. Now, I do not recommend either one of the amplifiers being put on a dedicated mid-bass driver or a sub. But if you want to run it through a passive network, such as a 2-channel or a 3-channel, you most certainly can, and it works just fine. Okay. So that was what Class AB is all about. Now, when we're talking about, the most complete DSP in the market, and I personally think it might be the best sounding right now there is. There's an awful lot of things that these DSPs do because of the enhancement that has happened with the GUI that a lot of people aren't aware of. One of them is the dynamic EQ and the ability to use the crossovers. This is on where we can go into the input side on each individual input channel, and you can DEQ signals that are coming off the factory amp. You can correct, let's say one of the channels that you are working with has an all-pass filter built into it, and you need to get rid of that all-pass filter. You can apply another all-pass filter to the opposite channel that negates it. You have the ability to also negate any type of channel delay, and that's just part of it. And we could spend 35 minutes or 40 minutes talking about that, and that's for another class. Okay, another thing that is really cool is the triggers that they have. They have the ability to where if you, let's just say that you have put a radar detector in the system and you want the radar detector to work and go through the amplification sections of the DSP, going through the DSP, you can do that. You can set up a trigger to where if the DSP goes off, one channel in the car goes off with it. Or if you want to make it really stupid loud, you can make it go through all the channels in the car. It is completely up to you. It's literally, you can use your imagination as to how you want to use the triggers. And then once that turns off, then it switches back to the normal DSP music side of things. There is these 2 algorithms that they've written, which gives us basically, one of them is almost like Dolby Digital Pro Logic 2. It's a simulation of that. There's another one called Crossmix and Monaural. That is an algorithm that the engineers have written that is basically for the center channel. For those of you who remember mixed mono back in the day, that's what this does. It takes a look at the left and examines the right, and you can add or take away, whether it's left minus right or right minus left, for your center channel. It sends information to the center channel. You have also what is known as cross mix. This is when you turn your rear channels on and it rotates phase 90 degrees in the rear channels. And basically what happens is your sound stage gets wider and it gets deeper. So these are, they have this built into the system. We talked about the integration measurement system just a little while ago. And we also have the ability to use the binaural measuring system, which we call Barney, which allows us to actually take the measuring system, the microphones, which is embedded in Barney's, plastic head. We put them in the driver's seat and literally tune the car, in say about an hour or an hour and a half, depending on how many speakers and how many channels we have to work with. It's a very unique system. It's different. There's nothing like it on the market today. And all of these that we're going to be talking about, all these DSP products utilize all of this we've just talked about. Another aspect that we like to talk about is Class SB compatibility, and this is for all the DSP products. Now, just what in the world is Class SB? Well, if you are finding out that when you are coming out of a factory head unit OEM amplifier and you're hooking it up into any DSP or into any amplifier, and all of a sudden you start turning it up and you get this really bad distorted sound, popping noises, it clips at very low volume. What is that? Well, this is what is known as a Class SB signal. And basically what happens is this. It's a single-ended signal up to clipping. Basically, AC voltage is positive, okay? Once you go above that volume, the clipping volume, then the negative side completes the missing part of the signal. In other words, it's basically unbalanced and balanced. And now there's going to be basically AC voltage on both wires. Now, what this looks like is this. If you take a look at this, this is an oscilloscope. It's a dual trace oscilloscope. And at the low volume, it works as single-ended, as you can see right here. Now, as you turn it up, you'll notice that at clipping right here, you can see where it's clipping. This is a very smooth, very even. This is a really non-distorted signal. This is a very distorted signal. And what happens is it starts shifting towards what is known as a bridge tie load. You can see this begins to show up. And as you go towards full volume, okay, you'll notice that it completes the wave. You notice that this becomes this. And you notice that this is completing the wave itself to where we have a completely undistorted signal. Now, where can you find these Class SB systems? Well, there's an awful lot of cars out there that have it. There's an awful lot of the Fords, the Broncos, the F-150s, the F-250s. There's a base audio system in Volkswagens, Audis, Porsches. Jim Rogers and I, we had a guy call us a few weeks back. He had a 2018 Honda Civic that we found had Class SB in it. So don't think it's something that just has happened in the last year or two. It's not. It's been out there. So understand that all of these DSPs that we're going to be talking about and all the DSP amplifiers, they are ready to handle this. And there's an ability for you to go in and set them up to where they will accept this signal and you will not have a problem whatsoever with them. Now, right now, as it stands, we are looking at these lines. You've got the Pro series of amplifiers, the 1 series of amplifiers, the Pico series of amplifiers, the Atomo series of amplifiers, and then the pure aerospace DSPs, okay? Now, the first one we're going to talk about is the Pro series, and they're available in 1, 2, 4, 5, and 8-channel versions. Most of these amplifiers, they're all basically off the same circuit design. You'll find that all of them have the start-stop features. They're optimized for it. They have there's 2 features that I really like to talk about. One is the DSP direct bypass. If you have an external DSP, okay, let's say you're using an Arrow 628 or an Arrow 812, and you have somebody that wants the best possible, cleanest signal, okay, this is where you use the DSP direct bypass. Basically, it turns the entire preamplification section off, and it is basically a standalone amplifier. Now, that DSP direct bypass only works with the Mosconi DSPs. It does not work with anybody else's, so please understand that. Also, there is a microprocessor that is tied into the power supply, and it monitors input voltage, it monitors output voltage, it monitors heat, it monitors every aspect of the amplifier, and it basically makes sure that it runs as best as it possibly can at all times. You'll also notice that even if you don't want to use a DSP, there are bandpass filters in all the channels, and it also has a high level and low level capability of input, which means that it has auto sense capabilities, okay? Those are the Pro amplifiers. Now, there are 2 amplifiers that I want to talk about real quick, the Pro 530 and the Pro 830 DSP. The Pro 530 was the very first Pro amplifier that was released a few years back. It's still made to this day, and it has what is known as different. It has different power outputs on different channels. Okay, like in the 530 channel 1 and 2 has 95 watts a channel. Channel 3 and 4 has 185 watts of channel, and then channel 5 has 660 watts. Now that's into 4 ohms. So staggered power is there. It's not to where channels 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all the same power. No, they're not. The Pro 830 with the built-in DSP is basically the same type of situation. The Pro 830, it has 90 watts of channel on channels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then it has 170 watts of channels 5, 6, 7, and 8. And of course, the DSP controls all of that as it may be. The rest of the amplifiers, they're all basically the exact same power output per channel. Okay. Now, when it comes to the 1 series, this is, as you can see in the background, this is actually what the new chassis look like. They have monoblock, which is a 1,000 watt monoblock, and it is 2 ohm at that power. It is a monoblock. It's a true monoblock. You have a 4-channel, a 6-channel, and an 8-channel. The 4, 6, and 8s all have built-in DSPs. They are all Class A/B forced cooling topology, with the exception of the 1001. These amplifiers right now, this minute, dollar for dollar, they're very, very hard to beat performance-wise and sound-wise. They are exceptional in design. They are all based upon a brand new circuit design. As you can see right here, these are the 4 different products right now available in the 1 series, which we will elaborate further on. Now, when this particular line is talked about with Pico, this is where we get into Class D. You know, with the 1 series and in the Pro series, predominantly Class A/B, a couple of Class A/B. The Picos are Class D. And as you can see, they're not very big. You know, in 2015, the very first one, you know, it's 80 watts a channel. This thing was 3.5 by 3 by 1.2. I mean, this thing would fit in the palm of your hand, and you just sit there and stare at it and go, "There's no way." You know, Pete Daly is on this call, and Pete Daly ran subwoofers on this thing bridged, and it was absolutely amazing. You know, he's our rep here in Texas, and Pete would just floor people by actually having that amplifier play a sub, and nobody bought it. They really didn't. But they've created this entire line of amplifiers now based around this technology, and the size of these things is ridiculous. Yeah, they're all multi-channel applications. You can put them in EVs, RVs, side-by-sides. You know, the power consumption on them is minimum. You know, and I think that these amplifiers right now, you know, as far as Class D technology is concerned, they are rivaling Class A/B up into about 75% of power output. Now, I'm not telling you it sounds like a Pro amp. No, I'm not, but I'm telling you that they sound very, very good. Like right now in my own personal vehicle, I have 3 Pico 4s and 2 Pico 1s. And I have Gladen Zeta 70 millimeter wide bands in the top of the dash with a 6.5 inch aerospace mid-bass driver, and I have a single 12 in the car. And I can tell you that the imaging, the staging, the depth, the 3-dimensionality, the timbre, everything that I look for in a system, these amplifiers do, and they do it extremely well. So I know everybody has heard about how Class D does what all Class D is supposed to do. Yeah, okay, fine. These change things, and I will point out to you in a minute, because there's something specific about the new Picos that I want to get into with you about why that sounds the way it does. Now, when it comes to the Atomos, these are tiny little bitty things. They're also Class D. They are great to be used when you are really size constraints. You know, glove boxes, behind radios, in very small areas of a car, when you've got small convertibles. You know, you've run out of places to put. These things are just unbelievably small. They fit in the palm of your hand. You know, bikes, RVs, side-by-sides, this is a great place to use them. If you need an amplifier for a center channel or just rear field and you've run out of room, guess what? You can probably find a place to put these things, because literally they fit in the palm of your hand. They are like twice the size of a package of cigarettes. And there is a standalone DSP. There's a 46 DSP that is available with this lineup. We sell a lot of these things, and they work extremely, extremely well. There are two standalone DSPs right now. There's the Arrow 8-12 and the Arrow 6-8. As the 8-12 implies, it's 8 channels of analog input. It gives you 12 analog channels of output. Obviously, with the Arrow 6-8, it's 6 channels of in, and it's 8 channels of out. All of them, both of them have optical input. They have digital coaxial inputs. They have digital outputs as well. The Arrow 8-12 will, it's up to a 24-bit, 192 kilohertz native sampling rate. It has the fully integrated measuring system, which we can correct any signal from any OEM amplifier out there in the world today. Yes, you can use Barney with this as well. It has all the algorithms bits into it we talked about, and each individual output channel has up to 8 volts of output. That's whether it's the 6-8 or it's the 8-12. Okay. Now, specific products. We're talking about late 2024, 2025. This DSP is not talked about, and people forget about it, and they shouldn't. It's the reason we're going to talk about it. It's been out for a little while. However, I want everybody to be made aware of this. This is the Arrow 6-8, and those of you who are used to seeing the old chassis 6-8, this looks completely different. It looks like the new Arrow. Well, there's a reason why. Because it is. It is basically a downsized version of the Arrow 8-12. 6 analog inputs, up to 30 volts of the maximum on the high level side. There's 8 analog outputs, obviously 8 volts maximum. There's 3 different types of digital inputs. You've got Toslink, you've got digital coax RCA, and then you have the ability also to plug what is known as the MOS card into it. Now, the MOS card means that you can plug Barney's MOS mic card can plug directly into it. The new Gladiator remote volume control, the new controller can plug directly into it there. You also have the ability to plug a high resolution Bluetooth card directly into it called the AMAS LD4C. Okay. The native sampling rate, this is the only thing that's different between this unit and the 8-12 Arrow, is the sampling rate is 2496 versus 24192. But you still notice, even quote unquote, the lesser, DAC, I got news for you. The signal to noise ratio is 105 dB. And the total harmonic distortion, you can see it's stupid low, it's ridiculously low. You can't even possibly come close to hearing that. And that's we're using 50% of the output voltage. The frequency response is 10 hertz to 40,000 hertz. And I get answered this question all the time. Who cares about it playing to 40,000 hertz? Well, when we're using the AMAS LD4C, okay, that is a direct, straight digital signal that's going into it from your phone. It could be from your digital player. It could be from whatever. And if you have the ability to stream 2496 via Bluetooth, which an awful lot of phones do today, that means you're going to play out to 40,000 hertz. So it's got to have the capability of doing it. So that's the reason why you see this. And of course, we have a brand new USB-C input cable, thank goodness. Used to have the proprietary cable, we'd lose it and then we'd be out of luck. So they changed it to a USB-C input. You can see the size on this thing, 6 by 5.5 by 2. It's not very big, but it is an extremely powerful DSP in all respects. Now, I'm going to show you a typical system that you can use with the 6-8 Arrow. And this is a 2023 GMC Yukon SLT. And this is where you can use the Arrow. And I do recommend, if you have the ability to take an outboard preamp like the new pack piece, the GM71, please use it. You're going to get a cleaner signal. Obviously, they're going to give you a digital output on this unit. I think it has the digital output available for it, which would go digital into the Arrow, which means you're going to get the cleanest signal. You're also going to keep the noise from getting any higher than it possibly could. Of course, if you don't want to, you can run up to 6 channels of input into this. You can sum them if you wish to do so. You can also go in and fix all of the problems you may find, depending on which channels you want to be using, whether it's an all-pass filter, whether it's EQ, whether it's channel delay, you can do that. So in this particular instance, I'm going to be using, because it is an SLT and this is going to be a higher end system, we're going to use the Pro amplifiers. So coming out of channels 1 and 2 and out of channels 3 and 4, we're going to go into the Pro 410. And I'm going to be adding the new Zeta ZM70 wideband speakers from Gladen, along with the Aerospace 165 DC mid-bass drivers. Now, the reason we are designing it this way is because in the Yukons and in the Tahoes and a lot of the GMC products, you have there's a wideband driver in the factory location, and it's not very good. I can tell you that the ZM70 is a direct drop-in replacement. It's very little modifications, if any at all, have to be done. In my own personal vehicle with the ZM70s I did not have to do anything. It was literally a drop-in replacement. Once I built, the flanges that these things fit in, and sounds absolutely fantastic. So I'm running it from 350 hertz out. That's what that wideband driver can do. And so we have, basically from 80 hertz to 25,000 hertz, I've got 2 speakers. So from our rear channels, I'm going to come out of channel 5 and 6 on the aerospace processor. And I'm going to use what is known as a 165.2 system from Gladen. This is a Sigma 165.2. I'm going to be going and using the passive networks because the system that's in the SLT is also a passive system in the back. So obviously what we're going to do is we're going to replace factory for factory in this particular instance because they're using a passive network between the tweeter and the mid-bass drivers. I'm also going to be adding a Pro 230 and into this. This is coming out of channel 7 and 8. And I'm going to be going to a pair of Gladen Aerospace 10-inch subwoofers. Now, this is an absolute best. This is one of the systems you would go, yeah, this is amazing. And looking at this and everybody's going, Nick, what is the Pro 230? I know the link is, what is that? I don't know what that is. Well, it's a very, very powerful amplifier that Gladen launched, that's Mosconi launched earlier last year. And it's an amplifier that, again, we don't talk an awful lot about. I think we should. It's the reason it's here. The reason this amplifier was built is really simple. When Mosconi first was launched back in 2009, 2010, they had a series of amplifiers called the AS. And it was amazing. The amount of power these things produced was just, it was fantastic. And there was an amplifier called the AS 300.2. And it was 300 watts a channel into 4 ohms. It was about 500 watts a channel into 2 ohms. It produced somewhere around, if I remember correctly, 1,200 to 1,500 watts mono at 4 ohms. And it can handle 2 ohm mono and produce a lot of power. And an awful lot of people that were using, 3 and 4 subwoofers underneath the backseat of trucks, they loved the amplifier. It worked fantastic. And then when AS went away a few years later and was replaced with the Pro line, this was not available. This amplifier was not there, and we were missing it. Here in the United States, the rest of the world may not have, but here in the United States, we were like, hey, I need my AS 300.2 replacement. So they listened to us, and here we are. Now, it is a Class G design. It is proprietary to the folks at Mosconi. This is their design. It's not something they found somewhere and just built it. No. It does have the direct DSP bypass. The microprocessor controls the power supply, and you can see the high level, low level inputs. That's not the story behind this amplifier. It's the amount of power this thing produces. It is 500 watts a channel into 4 ohms. Legit, no kidding, it doesn't. You've got dual to it. Let's say you've got a pair of 4 ohm subs, and they can handle the 500 watts. Here you go. At 4 ohms, here you go. If you got subs that have dual 4 voice calls and you want to run it stereo, you got 900 watts a channel. And believe it or not, honest to gosh, it can do 1,250 watts RMS at 1 ohm. Now, I will tell you, if you decide to do this at 1 ohm, the amplifier is going to get warm. The fans are going to kick on, and just it's going to get hot. But it will do it, and it will do it quite well. Obviously, you can bridge the amplifier to 2 ohms, and it's 2,500 watts mono at 2 ohms. So this was the answer for what we needed as far as multiple subwoofers in particular instances where we had to have this kind of power. So that amplifier is now available. We showed you a little while ago a typical system. I'm going to show you another one in which we're going to use the Pro 830 and we're going to use the Pro 230. Because when you have a premium in space, multi-channel amplifiers with Class AB power that have a built-in DSP processor, that is something we all should be looking to use. And this is one of those reasons. This is the reason why I built this system. This is an 8-channel with a built-in DSP. It has 2 channels of output, and we're going to use that going to the Pro 230. Okay. So in this particular instance, I'm also going to be using the Zeta widebands, and I'm also going to be using a pair of 8-inch Zeta 200 mist bass drivers. And yes, in case you haven't figured out, this is blatant advertising for the new Gladen speakers. For the rear, we're going to be using the Sigma tweeters, which are the ST22s and the SW165s. We're going fully active on the front stage and for the rear stage. So being able to use Barney, being able to use the binaural measuring system, it will be able for us to get maximum flexibility and maximum SQ out of the system. You're going to also add a pair of RS612 subwoofers from Gladen into this mix. So we're looking at front and rear full flexibility as far as the DSP is concerned. The DSP that is in the 830 controls the Pro 230 as well. And that means that we're going to be able to tune this system to an extremely high level in a relative short amount of time with not using a ton of product. So you don't see 4 amplifiers, you see 2. So that's the reason why, you see multi-channel amplifiers with built-in DSP processors in them, because of the fact that it makes life easier for all of us. Now, in the 1 amplifiers, this is Class A, B, and Class D, whereas, this is the same type of thing that we have in the Pro Series, but this is a brand new circuit design that just recently was released. With the 1/4-8 DSP, okay, it is a Class AB design, and there are 8 channels of DSP built into it. It is Class SB compliant. It has 6 channels of input. There are RCA inputs. You've got a high level or low level, except up to 15 volts. Now, this is a 4-channel amplifier. It's 130 watts by 4 or 175 by 4, depending on the ohm load. But you may also make a 5-channel out of this. I know an awful lot of people are asking, where's our 5-channel? Well, this is it. So you can take it, and it's at 4 ohms. It's 2 by 130. And if you bridge channels 7 and 8, you get 350 watts mono out of it. So that means that your flexibility there is quite, it's quite amazing. And if you need to, you can bridge the whole thing, and you can get 350 watts a channel by 2 at 4 ohms. Why you want to do that, that's up to you. If you've got a 3-way and you want to go through a passive network, sure, this is one way of doing it, absolutely. AutoSense, absolutely high-level input. You've got 4 analog outputs on this. So you've got 8 channels of DSP control. There's 2 volts output maximum. And obviously, we were talking about the digital input cards. That's there, obviously, with the Toslink input. Now, with all of the 1 series amplifiers, you're going to see the dimensions are all the same. There's 11.5 by 8.3 by basically 2. And they use basically the same circuit boards. Now, when you have something like this and you want to build a simple system, this is where this comes into play. If you have a bass system like Yukon, the Yukon bass system we're talking about here, bass system Volkswagen, bass system Ford, you're not going to have an interface for it. So this is where you can go directly channel for channel. You got front, left, and right. You got rear, left, and right. It gives you the ability to say, hey, I want to use what the factory's given us, or if I want to, if I want to sum channels and I want to get 20 to 20,000 hertz and I want to do what I want to do with it, that's fine. You have the ability to do both with this system. Okay, that's the beauty of these amplifiers with the built-in DSPs. So in this particular instance, I'm going to use basically a Sigma 165.2 with the factory in the factory locations, and I'm going to use the passive network because that's what the factory has given me as well. And so I'm going channel for channel out. So I'm using, for the rears, I'm using an RC165 blade and coax. Okay, now this is a very simple system. It can work extremely well, and you can end it like that. But because of the flexibility of this, you have the ability to take channel 7 and 8, and we add a 1000 monoblock amplifier, and we can add subwoofers into the system relatively easily. And again, we are full DSP control in every respect. So if you've got an interface, use it. If you don't have an interface, that's okay. You have the ability, and this is class AB, so it is going to sound better in every respect. Now, when it comes to the 6 to 10 DSP, it is basically 2 more channels of amplification and 2 more channels of output. So instead of having an 8-channel DSP, we have a 10-channel DSP built into it. It gives us 6 channels of input. Again, it is class SB compliant. Now, the power changes. Okay, so instead of 130, it's 100. So we have 6 channels out of 100 at 4 ohm, or 6 at 125 at 2 ohm. Okay. Again, you can build this as a 5-channel amplifier. It's going to make it 4x100 or 1x250. And if you want to bridge it to 3 channels, you most certainly may. Okay. Auto sense, obviously, yes, with a high level. You've got 4 analog outputs versus 2. And obviously, with the digital inputs and outputs, everything remains the same. Now, as I just showed you that 1000-watt monoblock, let me talk about this for a minute. This is not class AB, this is class D. And again, this is proprietary to the folks at Mosconi. It does have 2 channels of input, and it can accept up to 15 volts, and it is class SB compliant. Power-wise, I will tell you, this amplifier is optimized for 2 ohm operation. It can go to 1000 watts. That's at 2 ohms. At 4 ohms, it's about 600 watts. Does have a subsonic filter built into it because, you know, if you have a vented enclosure, you want to make sure that you turn that subsonic filter on. You want to make sure that it's about 5 hertz below the tuning frequency of the vented enclosure to protect the woofer from bottoming out. It does have 2 analog outputs. They are full range. If you have a full range signal going into it and you're using the built-in crossovers on the unit, that's fine. It will give you full range output. If you need it, that's fine. If not, that's okay. You don't need to use it. That's fine. It's there. And you can see the dimensions are exactly the same. So when we're talking about, you know, building a system and having the aesthetics look really, really good, you know, you kind of want the amplifiers to look alike if that's important to you. And they all do. They're all basically the exact same size. Now, this will be an example of number 2, and we're actually going to be using the same type of system. It's going to be the base system in a Tahoe, right, or a Yukon, and we're going to be sending 4 analog inputs into the unit. In this particular instance, if you can use, you know, an interface, please do. Now, in this one, we're going to go active. I'm going to use the same type of speakers we were using a little while ago, but instead of using the passive network, I'm going to go fully active with the wide bands and with the mid-bass driver. I'm going to use an additional output channel now now I'm going to go active into the rears. So this is going to give me a little more flexibility as far as tuning is concerned. Again, using Barney, that would make jive much, much easier. And because I have 2 additional channels of output on channels 9 and 10, that means I can now have the subwoofers into the system in every respect. So a little more flexibility. It gives you the ability to go fully active and add rear channels if you want to. If you want to go, you know, front with a passive network, rear with a passive network, you can do that. You want to bridge the additional channels and have it go to a subwoofer without adding an additional amplifier, you most certainly can do that as well. It's just flexibility that because of the multiple channels that we have with via the DSP, it makes our life extremely better because of the amount of flexibility that's built into these products. When it comes to the 8 to 10, we have the same 10-channel DSP as the 6 to 10, but we're giving more amplification channels. Okay, it has 8 channels of analog input instead of 6. It is class SB compliant. So instead of 100 watts a channel, we're stepping down to 90 watts a channel or 120 watts a channel, respectfully. And instead of a 5-channel, it can become a 6-channel. So you can bridge it to 4x85 and then you can get 2 by 250. So if you want to do a front, left and right, let's say with a 6.5-inch two-way with a passive network, you want to do rears with coaxials or 6x9s, coaxials, you got it. That's 85 watts a channel. And then if you want to add a pair of subwoofers, you've got it. You can go 2 by 250 watts into the sub. Easy peasy. And the same thing applies from the 6-to-10 to the 8-to-10 as far as auto sense, the analog outputs, and the digital inputs. And as we can all see, the sizes remain the same. Now, to maximum flexibility with the 8-to-10, let me show you this. So we're going to go step up to an SLT AT4s, and I'm going to add the 1000 into this. So here's what you can do with the 8-to-10. In the SLT and the AT4, you have a three-way. Okay, so we're going to go factory replacement with a three-way. So the front channels are channels 1 through 6 on the output of the DSP. For the rears, we're going to add, again, a pair in which we're going to be using the Gladen 165.2 SWs. For our subwoofers, we're going to be using, again, the 1000 coming out of channel 7 and 8 or 9 and 10, respectfully. That's up to you. And you can add, again, with this particular system, I'm using an 8. The wide bands I'm using as a mid-range, and then I'm adding the ZT30 tweeters for our front stage, which is fully active. Our rears, I'm going to be running a high pass on them because we're going to be going through the passive network on the 165.2 Sigmas. And I'll be adding a low pass onto the RSX12s going through the 1000. Now, this will be an outstanding system in every respect. Would not take a backseat to very many systems out there. And again, when we have the binaural measuring system in an hour and a half, we can have this entire system tuned to an unbelievable level. So now stepping down from, as far as size-wise, is the Pico Series V2. Now, these have been completely redesigned from the ground floor up. Those of you who are familiar with the old Pico Series, Pico 1, that were the silver chassis, they were outstanding, performed extremely well, made a lot of power, but there were some aspects to them that a lot of us were like, I wish things were a little different. And one of them is right here's what you're looking at. These are the dip switches that are found underneath it uses a series of magnets to hold a plate in place. Used to, when we would have to configure the DSP amplifier for, let's say, Class SB compliant, you would have to take the amp apart, just almost completely apart, and you would have to flip or turn switches or move jumpers around to make it work. Was it a pain in the butt? Yes, it was. And they realized that, and they made this easier to where now it's just a matter of reading and looking off to your right. You can see different configurations are not allowed, and it says input sensitivity, and you can look at your low level and high level. Depending on how you want to use it, you can flip these switches right here as to however you want them to be used as far as different inputs are concerned. Makes life so much easier. They also took something called the Infineon Maris chip. It is the first time anybody in the industry has used this. This is a chip that this company named Infineon created. They're based in Germany, and it is an output power chip that actually sounds closer to Class AB. Was it a little more expensive? Yes, but they didn't care. Obviously, these folks, they love the music, and that's what this is all about. It also, being closer to Class AB, they found out that they can lower the consumption as far as amperage is concerned. 3 to 4 amps. That may not seem like a whole lot, but when you're using multiple amplifiers, yeah, it can be. It also lowered the working temperatures of the amplifier from somewhere between 20 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. That's less than the version 1 of the Picos. That's a big deal. We all know when you've got amplifiers that get hot and we got them underneath places and they don't get an awful lot of air, they can shut off. These things, it makes it extremely difficult for these things to shut off. I'm not saying they won't, but it makes it a little more difficult for it to happen. All of the Pico series DSP amplifiers have 8 channels of input, every single one of them, and their high level and low level capability, obviously. And you'll find that all of the connections are now on one side of the amplifier, which makes the install so much easier. It's not even funny. So they listen to all of the complaints and all the recommendations from around the world, that those of us who were using Mosconi were saying, hey, this would be really cool. So again, this is a redesign of the amplifier as a proprietary circuit design using the Infineon power chips. Obviously, it does have 8 analog inputs, but yeah, you can go up to 30 volts of input. And that means that the OEM amplifier that we're using in BMWs, powering the subs underneath the seat, yes, it will accept those inputs without a problem. All of them are Class SB compliant. Now, this amplifier has 90 watts a channel, or it has 85 watts a channel, 1x230. Now, pay attention. On this particular amplifier, channels 1 and 2 and channels 5 and 6 output are used. Okay, channel 3 and 4 is not. Okay, it is the way they laid this circuit board out because of the way they did the circuit board. When you're using the same circuit board for the 4 to 8, the 6 to 10, the 8 to 10, this is the reason why they did this. Okay, there's an 8-channel DSP built into this. It has 4 line level outputs, 2 volts maximum. All of the same digital inputs and outputs that we were talking about with the 1 series applies here as well. The input sensitivity, this is something I like to talk about. On the low level side, it will accept up to 5 volts of input. Okay, and then in the high level side, it'll accept up to 30. So you have maximum flexibility with all of the Pico amplifiers. This applies to every single solitary one of them. And as you can see with the size, these things are not big. It's 6 by 6 by 2. I mean, this is amazing technology in a very small footprint. Example, we're going to show you an example. Again, I'm going to use a base system for the Yukon because it's a pain in the you-know-what to work on these things. But this makes life so much easier. So you can use channel 1 and 2 and channel 3 and 4 input. Again, if you want a summation, you want to sum them together and get 20,000 hertz, and you want to figure out how you want to disperse the information, that's fine. If you want to use channel for channel, that's fine. It's up to you. So in this particular instance, we were going channel for channel. Again, I'm using a 165.2 SW. This is with the Sigma series. And then on the rears, I'm going to use a coax, again, the RC 165s. Again, with the output now, because of the way that this is designed, it'd be really easy to use a Pico V2 1 subwoofer amplifier, which is a monoblock amp. And you can drive, let's say, like in this particular instance, an RSX 8. It'd be really easy to add that into it. So you have maximum flexibility, and we have the ability to use Barney. So tuning the system would not be a problem in any respect. Now, V2 6 to 8 is just a little bit more output as far as channels are concerned. It's not as much power, as you can see. Obviously, we have the same inputs with the same 30 volts of input. It is Class AB compliant. This changes to where it's 4 by 50. Okay, and it's channels 1, 2, 3, and 4 are 4. This is where 50 watts. But notice this is 3 ohm stable. Okay, so channel 1 through 4, you can use all the Gladen speakers that are playing at 3 ohms. You can do that. That's not a problem. Channels 1 through 4 are not bridgeable, though. Channels 5 and 6 are bridgeable. Okay, so if you want to use 5 and 6 in stereo, it's 80 watts a channel. That's at 4 ohms. If you want to bridge them, okay, you can. That takes the power on channels 1 through 4 down just a little bitty bit to 45 watts, but then you get 210 watts bridged. So you could do front, rear, sub with 1 amplifier, as long as the sub is fairly efficient and doesn't need more than 200 watts, 200 watts. It has a complete 8-channel DSP built into it. We have 2 analog outputs on this. It is Barney compatible in every respect, and obviously the high level that we're talking, level of inputs are there, and obviously the digital inputs we were the same, and the size is the exact same. Now, for this particular instance, because we're getting 2 more extra channels, okay, let me show you what you can do with this. So if we have a front mid-bass driver, we can put it on channel 5 and 6. If our wide bands are being utilized, we can use 1 and 2. I'm going to go fully active because I'm going to use the wide bands positions on the top of the dash and the Yukon, and we're going to put the 6.5 in the door. I'm going to use the RC 165s. This will be on channel 3 and 4 output. Now, people ask me, why are you using channel 5 and 6 on the output to the mid-bass driver? Because it has more power. Remember, it's got 80 watts instead of 50. So that's the reason why. Okay. I'm going to use an Atomo 1 because I have this gentleman who is worried about size constraint, as far as using product somewhere, he wants to hide everything. Okay, fine. So in this particular instance, I'm going to use the Atomo 1, and I'm going to be applying it to a Glade shallow mount 10-inch woofer. So we're going to do some custom work in the back left-hand corner and build a small enclosure for that RSX10. So again, maximum flexibility with these amplifiers, with these processors built into it. Finally, with the 8-to-10 DSP, you're looking at, instead of, again, the 8 analog inputs, it is SB compliant. Obviously, we get 30 volts of input. Now, things changed a little bit. The first 4 channels remain the same. They're 3 ohm stable. They're not bridgeable. But instead of 2 by 80, we get 4 by 80. Okay, so, and we can bridge channels 5 and 6 and channels 9 and 10. So instead of 1 by 210, we now get 2 by 210 watts at 4 ohms. We get the same additional 2 analog outputs on channel 7 and 8. It gives me 2 volts of output maximum. It is Barney capability is there, obviously, because we're using the most modules with the digital inputs. And obviously, we have the same auto sense turned on with the high levels. Okay. Now, this system makes that this work going to be a little bit easier with the Pico 1 V2. When we're talking about this amplifier, you have the ability to take this amplifier and power just about any single sub out there, with the maybe exception of some of the bigger subs from Focal. It's 900 watts at 1 ohm. It's 350 at 4, it's 600 at 2. Most of the Glade subs, this will be great. Most of the Focal subs, it'll be great. I don't know of anything that this thing wouldn't work extremely well with. Yeah, it works extremely well in 12 volt and 18 volt models. Now, we've got 18 volt models available with all the Picos as well, in case you need it for some of the Teslas that are out there right now. And there's a couple of cars in Europe right now that have 18 volt systems. I don't know if they're coming to the United States or not, but it's there if you need it. Okay, it's just for you guys to know. There is always a subsonic filter turned on. So that you can see it's really low. It's 13 hertz at 12 dB per octave slope. So it will do its best to protect your subs if you have a vented enclosure. System-wise, this becomes a little bit more complicated. It gives you a little more flexibility as far as you being able to run possible 3-way up front, which in this particular instance we're going to be doing. So instead of using, let's say, the 1 series 8-to-10 DSP, we're going to step down a little bit in SQ, and we're going to go a little bit in power to this particular amplifier. But the performance level on this, again, because of the new Infineon chip, it is beginning to rival Class AB. So simply because, we're going to step down, quote unquote, in power in class doesn't mean that it doesn't sound amazing. It does. The first time we heard these using the Infineon chips, until I pushed them really hard, I was sitting there listening to it going, well, I'm going to be hard pressed to hear the difference. And again, probably 75% of the power output, you're going to be hard pressed to hear the difference in between Class AB and these amplifiers. You can see this is it's a very sophisticated system. This would be an outstanding sounding system. And you're only using 2 amplifiers, and you can hide these things just about anywhere in the car, and nobody's going to know that there's a system in the car in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Now, there are some new things coming in the DSP platforms. We're waiting for them. There's going to be 12 channels of input with 16 channels of output available. The first one is going to be the Pico 12 to 16, and then we're going to get a standalone Aero 12 to 16. Now, when they show up, we don't know. We know they're working on it. They know it is necessary because, let's face it, when you have 19 channel systems, 24 channel systems, 36 channel systems, you're going to have multiple channel DSPs or DSP amplifiers. And when you have digital outputs to digital input, you can go from one Pico amp to the next, and go from the next Pico amp over to another one. You can get 36 channels of amplification. Makes life easier. If you want to do that when this gets here, you call Jim Rogers. He'll help you do that with Barney. Don't call Nick because Nick's not going to do it. I'm just kidding. It's going to be amazing. But that's the reason why this platform is coming. Now, this is something that a lot of people have just begun to realize that this is available. It's called the Gladiator, and it is the new remote control that is available for any of the DSPs that use the new software, which will be all the pros and all the Picos and these things. It's pretty cool. There's a card that comes with this controller, and it plugs into the BT Plus port. And how you configure this particular product is what you do is you go into the GUI, you click on the Gladiator setting, and this opens up. And basically, you choose which function you want this thing to do. It has multiple functions that you can see. It can control volume sub. It can control the input volume coming off the OEM amplifier. You can set it up to where one section is balance fader. One could be tone control. There's 4 presets available, and you can make any of these a particular color that you want to by over here. And you can, by this unit, by part of this, you can make this any color you want. And if you decide that I want to change it out, you can hit reset, and there you go. So it's extremely flexible. It's not hard to put together. It takes about 5 minutes because it's in pieces and it just snaps together. It works extremely well. I know that Sage has used it. Sage Weir's used it a lot. I know Herman Schulmeister used it. I think Jim's used it. I've played with it. It works. I like it. The volume control on it is very linear. It doesn't jump on you quite as bad as some of the other ones have that we've all used in the past. So it's a little bit better as far as linearity is concerned in the volume control. And this is available right now this minute. I know everybody probably knows about Barney, but I want to go over it because Barney's really very, very special. It's the only tuning system at its level at this point in time. It's software microphones, and basically what it does is as you can see, it's in the background. There are 2 microphones, and we're using basically a human head, a replica of a human head, not a real one. People always get on me when I say that. But what they're doing is the microphones listen how we hear because of what is known as head effect. That is basically how the human head and sound that comes to the human head wraps around it and gets to our ears. And that's a big, big deal. You know, there's multiple microphone arrays out there and they do great jobs, but they don't take that into account. This does. And when you have that ability, and because of the way that they wrote the algorithm, you can measure everything that goes on inside the car. You can correct the delays, the phase, and it can set up an equalization curve. It's the only one right now that can ignore the factory EQ. So what you do is you literally hook this up, and it has its own built-in tone generators, and it uses the internal tone generators to tune the car. That's right. So it looks at the car without having to look at the factory EQ, which gives you the ability to go in and you can change everything on the factory EQ and flatten it out, and you have a great system. And it's a very simple 4-step tuning process. It's delay, then you measure the phase variance between each individual speakers in the car. You measure what is known as the modes, which is interference between the speakers, and then you measure EQ. It's that simple and it's that easy. Most of the time, it takes about an hour to an hour and 25 minutes to tune the car, depending on how many speakers and how many amplification channels we have. I will tell you that there's not a system out there that can't benefit from the use of a DSP, especially when you have this type of binaural technology. The cool thing about it is it's free to you guys. If you are a dealer, it's a free tool. If you're not a dealer and you want to have this done, search out a dealer that does. Okay, that has one. They'll be more than happy to let you to get this car set up and have them tune it for you. It's not hard to learn. It's actually really easy to learn. And I really do suggest that my dealers out there, if you haven't gotten one of these yet, I strongly, strongly urge you to consider this because it makes the car sound absolutely phenomenal. Not just really good. Cars can sound phenomenal and it doesn't take long. And isn't that what this is truly all about, everybody? Is we're trying to make our cars sound phenomenal. So Barney's a great tool to do that. Now, I'm going to read a couple of these testimonials because, you know, it's Nick, and Nick's been doing this for a long time. And yeah, Nick's works for Orca, and it has to be, you know, Nick doesn't have a choice. He's got to say it. Well, let me I'm going to read a couple of things to you. One is, this is a testimonial from Mr. Mike Flanagan at Pro Audio Center in Mississippi. Mike is a IASCA/USAC/EMA sound quality judge. And I trust Mike. And when Mike got this and they started using it, this is what he sent us. He said, and I quote, "The biggest benefit is the speed and efficiency that Barney offers to get a great tune in the time it would normally take us to just get a good tune. A lot of the vehicles before this product would get a really awesome tune, but take hours to do it. Now, Barney reduces that time and makes us feel more confident in our ability to tune. Barney also allows us to use processing where we wouldn't have in the past. As we speak, I'm putting a Barney tune in a boat. With the auto EQ and dynamic range ability, we were able to make open stereos, such as in boats and all-terrain vehicles, sound better than ever at any volume." That's amazing. You know, and we had thought about boats, we had thought about motorcycles, but we weren't sure how it was going to work. Well, Mike and his group down there, they proved that it would work extremely well. Another one is from Angel Rivera at, let me back up here, at Lake Town Speed. He's been doing this a long time, and he says, "Having Barney at our store definitely gives us another great tool to help us streamline our tuning procedure. It helps us evaluate vehicle environment in real time and allows us to extract the very best sound for Focal and Mosconi. It is definitely an asset at our shop. This helps us offer another premium service to our clients, not easily found elsewhere." And our last one comes from Sean Sprongel at K5 Squared in Minnesota. You know, Sean they have a custom shop and they build things from the ground floor up. If you ever seen any of their K5 Blazers, freaking amazing what they can do. What he was telling me is that they basically, you know, they do more installs for customers looking for perfection in sound. And he says, "I believe this is related to the ability to tune more efficiently than ever before. Barney's changed the way we build our interiors. Having the flexibility to place speakers in locations that are less than desirable, yet still they are tuned to perform, is a luxury that we don't get in classic car builds often. Everything we build is from scratch on platforms that came with one AM radio, you know, one AM speaker. Barney's made life easier on many levels in our day-to-day, from motorcycles to convertibles." So when you stop and think that when you don't have to put custom built whatever in the car, and that you can use factory locations, which sometimes, you know, we all know they're not the optimum position for the speakers to perform, and you use Barney gets the most out of it. And I can tell you right now, I have a QX80 Infiniti SUV, and utilizing the factory locations in the system, I am extremely happy with the sound that I have. By tuning the car, I took maybe hour and 15 minutes to do it. And it sounds absolutely fantastic. So if you are not using Barney, please, I encourage you to do so in every respect. Okay. I appreciate you. Thank you also very much for attending. I'm going to give everybody a chance that if you want to take a picture of our QR code, we invite you to please come to our YouTube family, our Orca Design family of products channel. Please subscribe. This is going to be up on there soon, and there's a lot of other